Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm gonna take a little bit of a look at some awful gaming PCs that are available readily on Amazon, and I'll go ahead and actually link some of these down below. Just be aware, I'm recommending you don't buy these PCs I'm gonna be looking at. And the reason I'm actually looking at these is because there's a trend that was actually mentioned on a different channel, Tech Yes City, that mentioned that in the United States, at least in his experience, in the United States, selling used PCs boils down more to how the actual computer looks than the actual performance inside of the computer. I think what was going on there is he had sort of a pre-built, your standard office ugly PC that actually packed a pretty good amount of gaming performance versus a really nice looking PC that just didn't have much for hardware inside of it. So I want to take a look at some of these Amazon computers and point out why they're awful and what you can do better. And sure, you may give up some looks, but hey, at least you'll have a PC that can actually play the games you want to play. So to get us started here, we're going to be looking at this iBUYPOWER Enthusiast gaming desktop PC featuring an FX 6300 at 3.5 gigahertz and a GT 710, which is just awful. You can't play modern AAA titles at any kind of good settings, making the games look any kind of good on a GT 710. So 1 gigabyte graphics card, 8 gigabytes of DDR3 system RAM. At least there is a 120 gigabyte SSD. Wait a minute, is that the only storage? That's the only storage. So this PC, not only can you not play any sort of modern AAA titles, at least at decent frame rates at a decent resolution like 1080p, or really I would even think 900p might be pushing it. You can only have a few games installed because there's such a small amount of storage. So you would require an immediate upgrade with this system to play games at reasonable frame rates, or even to store the game on your PC to begin with. Now the going rate that they're asking for is $475, and anyone that buys this, whether they end up happy with the purchase or not, they're getting ripped off because this PC is just not worth that. The hardware inside of this PC is just not worth that amount of money. So next up is going to be Cyberpower PC, and they are another very popular sort of gaming system builder. And let's just start off looking at the hardware in here. We have an FX 6300 again, which, to be fair, a 6300 could still play games at decent frame rates in 2018. It's not a terrible CPU for gaming. If you already have one, you may or may not need to upgrade. Depends what kind of games you're playing. I wouldn't recommend that you go and buy older hardware like this necessarily, unless you're getting a really good deal on it, which you're not with these PCs. But it's not the world's worst gaming CPU. The problem with this build, just like the last one, is this R7 240. Whereas the GT 710 was the thing slowing this last PC down, this is going to be the same problem with an R7 240 in it. It looks like for storage we have a 1 terabyte hard drive. So at least with this one, you can store your games on your computer. Now, the markup is a little bit too much. I mean, $475 on the last one. You could buy a 2 or 3 terabyte hard drive for the money difference between the last one and this one. And again, the case looks nice. The hardware inside actually looks like it's well managed. There's only 1 stick of RAM used, so you're not even utilizing dual channel memory there. It just needs better hardware. And it's not worth $550, just period, it's not. Okay, this is a brand that I haven't really had any experience with in the past. This is Exotic, and this is a much more modern system. We have a 2200G here, that's a quad-core CPU. We have 8 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. Does not say how fast the memory is, and that's really important for these APUs. The system itself looks really nice. It's kind of got that all black look on the inside with some red accents. You have RGB fans, which I suspect you could probably change to make them match the rest of the system, which would be probably just red. Cable management's looking all right. You do have room there to expand to add a GPU to the system. So this system's definitely a more modern system that you could potentially upgrade, but I do have a couple major problems with it. One of them would be, and I could have sworn I saw this somewhere in this listing, which is why I picked on it. Yep, there it is. So we have in this system an A320 motherboard, which means overclocking is not going to be possible on that 2200G. That's a big problem for a computer that costs $600, considering that B350 boards are not much more expensive. So I have a major problem with using that particular type of motherboard in this system, because if you upgrade the CPU down the road, if you had a B350 board, you unlock a ton of awesome upgrade options, which, to be fair, you could put a Ryzen 7 1700 or a 2700 into an A320 board. The problem with that is just going to be that you can't overclock, you can't get the full potential out of that CPU. Which is fairly easy to do with a B350 board. Even with the stock cooler of something like a Ryzen 7 1700, you can get a little bit of an overclock and some added performance. So I do have a major problem with the A320 board. And then just being a 2200G, again, you're going to struggle to play games at 1080p for the most part. Your esports titles you'll be able to get up and running. Overwatch, you're going to struggle to hit 60 FPS without dropping settings way down. So while it does give you a nice upgrade option and a nice upgrade path here, and it does have good storage options, you know, a nice SSD for a boot drive and then a lot of storage for your games there, it's overpriced again. And that's sort of the theme here, is you're just not getting a lot of performance in these systems. You're not going to be playing modern AAA titles at decent frame rates. And the reason this is really important, and I know that looks sell systems, and I'm not saying that your system has to look bad, or if you're buying a system, you have to spend more money to get a system that looks good and performs well. But the unfortunate fact, for the most part, is that if you are buying these pre-built systems that are sort of geared towards gaming, you're probably going to have to spend a little bit more to get the internals to match how the system looks. Now, if you don't care quite as much about how the system looks, or you think, you know, maybe down the road you'll transplant the system from a bad-looking case or a mediocre-looking case to a really nice-looking case, and in the meantime, you can just get the performance, I would recommend something like the 2019 HP Pavillion here. And I pulled this computer up because it is $550. So if we go clear back, because I had these sort of arranged by price, it is the same price as the FX 6300 system paired with the R7 240, but what you get is just so much better. You're getting a second gen Ryzen 5 part, which, to be clear, is only the 2400G. So you're only getting 4 cores and 8 threads, but still 4 cores and 8 threads, which that's okay. 4 cores and 8 threads, even in 2019, is going to be really, really solid for you. But more important here, you're getting an RX 580 4GB card. So the graphics card that ships with this system is really, really good for 1080p gaming. In fact, it's one of the best price to performance cards right now out there for 1080p gaming. You can actually find RX 580s used for just barely over $100 on eBay right now. So they are a very cheap, efficient graphics card for 1080p gaming. Now, I don't particularly love this listing on Amazon because it doesn't specifically tell you exactly what your RAM and storage is gonna be. Hey guys, Editing Shane here, and I did want to point out that the Amazon listed price here is before you add any customizations at all. So this is assuming 0 RAM, 0 hard drive, 0 SSD, that sort of thing. So when you click the customize button for this listing, HP is charging you an arm and a leg for your RAM and even for your hard drive. My recommendation here, if you're buying this system, is actually to go and buy your own RAM and buy your own hard drive and or SSD, because you'll save a lot of money. If you go that route, you can get 8 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM and a hard drive, and you'll be looking at about $100 more on the system build. If you go through HP here and order your RAM through Amazon, they're going to charge you about $90 for 8 gigabytes of RAM and another $50 for a 1 terabyte hard drive. Both of those costs are a little bit on the high side, so I would do it yourself and then just plug things in when it all arrives, and you have yourself a working PC at that point. And yes, if you do get your own storage and don't have any storage at all with it, it will not have Windows pre-installed. You'll have to install that yourself, but still gonna save money in the long run. The whole point of this is simple. There are much better options out there than some of these crappy internal but really nice looking PCs on Amazon. And if you are in the market for a gaming PC, and if it's your first gaming PC, and if you're not building it yourself, you just want, you want the computer shipped to your door, you want to plug it in and start playing your games, don't worry about how it looks. This thing, in my mind, does not look bad. Doesn't look great. It's pretty basic looking, but it doesn't look bad. It's not a huge tower PC. It's probably significantly smaller than some of these other computer towers, so it's not going to take up as much space. but more importantly, it's just gonna give you a lot better performance. I would recommend going the route of something like this instead of spending more money on something that looks really great but just doesn't perform that well. You're gonna have a great experience with something like this. Whereas if you're playing with an R7 240, you might or might not. But that's really it. I do want to hear from you guys. What is your sort of Amazon PC of choice right now? If you want to go to Amazon, pick out the pre-built that you would recommend for people that are trying to build or buy rather their first computers. Let us know down below in those comments with some links, some recommendations for people to go look at for a nice gaming PC on a decent budget. And of course, if you like the video, hey, give it a like, share, subscribe, comment. All those things are great for the channel. You can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at Hoosier Hardware. And as always, I'll let YouTube queue up a couple more videos from my channel for you to watch. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware, and I'll see you guys in the next video.